your first explosive conflict hits to the core of the marriage, and there's no correlation between your wedding day and your marriage.
It's important to have premarital counseling, and we've seen the success. We ourselves were not counseled before we got married, and we felt that pain.
Saying sorry requires a lot of courage, especially when you're right.
Isn't it crazy how when you get married, unotanga no time is a certificate or certificate also qualify like, isn't that a crazy concept? I think people should. Don't you think people should test all this? Don't consider that married and what's your take?
No one will be married.
Huh?
No one will be married if
Serious?
you be tested first.
Serious?
Yeah. No one will be married.
I don't know qualifiers. Everyone's got flaws.
Serious?
Yeah.
But my distinctions, I don't know 5% distinction.
And unless they're going to be great pretenders, and people can do that. They can pretend. And courtship and then later on.
Interesting.
Marriage should be premised on love. Love is a huge risk. Do you practice to love? Or love is an expression of something that's in your heart?
Aber im Rudipis, aber muss im Rudipis era.
Experience.
All right. Anyway, guys, welcome to another to a very special edition of Confession Booth. I'm here with Babanamai Ethan, a lawyer, Fundisi. They are professional athletes. No, they are professionally married people. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you again, ma'am. I'll be more behaved today. I want to go down memory lane. What makes you say, this is the person I want to get married to? How long have you guys been dating, and what made you say, you know what, I think I want to spend forever with this person?
Are you sure you want me to answer that
question? I mean,
okay, so I grew up in a very structured home, very religious. And even in terms of my professional training, my theological training, we were told at university that you would be wise. You know, the whole better the devil you know mantra. Yeah, it was one of those things. So long story short, I then went through a very great disappointment. Then I met her. She did not fit the typical script or the definition of the profile of a pastor's wife. But I think for me, what I saw in her was I like using this word, the exuberance, the life. I saw life in her, and the fact that she loved God. What's important is she was larger than life, and she loved God.
That's me, ja. That's all me.
That's crazy. So fast forward, Ufumi wa chinja na as in, like, you know, you've done the processes and whatever. Honeymoon phase, you know ya superarin. Like pamnota thought, yeah, panapata marriage, she's in a relationship. How you know, like, when does it hit you after he proposes, you say yes, and then where do you now get to the settings of marriage at a marriage?
Well, you know what, with our situation, it was a bit interesting because, like, we had planned, okay, we're going to have a child after 2 years. So I had a challenge because I had to take antibiotic, which interacted with the family planning course we had taken. So after 2 months of marriage, I became pregnant. And so we got a reality check. You know, like you're saying, you want to go through the honeymoon phase, but already you've got hormones coming in, you've got a lot of things happening. But I could say safely that, you know, maybe 2 years, auntie, 2 years or thereabouts, you experience the honeymoon phase. It's also, we just had that dynamic, which already you have a kid in there, you think, wait, what happened? And so yeah, it was kind of.
Now, for like most people, this is like a make or break. How do you handle the first explosive fights? Yes, you know, like the first fights, you're disagreeing to the generations, news. You know what I mean? Those, you know, you can do it on your phone. But I mean, the first explosive fights. How do you deal with that conflict resolution? What goes into that? Like the first fight where, you know, Magarara Mota, you slept upstairs, he was downstairs, or maybe one room, or whatever.
Well, I must make a confession and I must be honest. I'm
the one supposed to do that confession.
No, it's okay. Because you see, what happens is your first explosive conflict hits to the core of the marriage and it threatens the existence of it. So you come out of that bubble. You go, oh, she wakes up, or I wake up, I love her so much.
Breakfast in bed.
You know, so
so
the true test of love is not when things are smooth, but when you then have to utilize all the resources for conflict resolution you've ever learned, and you are the victim. When you have been the one who's been offended,
how?
And you I feel like,
you know, just to follow up on that, like she even just said how right now, right? So Masori Mangani, like in the how long have you guys been married for?
13 years.
13 years. Masori Mangani, have you our pure?
Sure.
I know she got 5.
No fool.
Oh, she's busy. She said sorry. Oh, nice. No, I'm saying like how did you learn to say sorry even if you know that you are not the one that's wrong? Because one thing I've learned and one thing I've heard from people say, and even in my own personal relationships, is that leaving is the easier part. Like is, you know, like waking up every morning knowing that this person is a flaw like this and staying is hard. So how did you get to that point where you're like,
well, can I say something on that one? Because you know what? I grew up, and background plays a very critical role, which is one of the things we counsel people on a lot, to say worldviews. I came from a family where my dad would always tell me, you know, and you know how they sit as, you know, the elderly, and they say, and you know, he would even nurture me in such a way that argument. So my father would actually tell me, sorry, your perspective. So I brought that into the marriage, and I would never say sorry. I knew if I said sorry, I would have lost. For me, I needed to win. And it really had its downside, because, you know, so yeah, I just wanted to put that in there.
Saying sorry requires a lot of courage, especially when you're right.
And a genuine sorry for that.
Yeah, and a genuine sorry, because it takes you out of your comfort zone. Your default setting is I'm right, okay? She is wrong. So therefore, the logical conclusion must be she must say sorry. But there's a false assumption in there, Alex, in that you are thinking that the person who you think should say sorry actually acknowledges that they are wrong. And even if they do acknowledge that they are wrong, do they have the courage to open their mouth and say, I am sorry?
Hey, you mentioned something, it could depend. You mentioned something very interesting. You mentioned background and your family and your dad telling you that you should be A, B, C, D. Mm-hmm. Now you two are together. That means that kwane 75 ekuzinzarako ne 75 ekuzinzarako vari kusangana vane maviews ekutoti isuzatidi baby ane rasta anenge ndewembanje vamwe vachitoti mafundisi varonetsa Tanzania dzemapastor. And how do you manage the geopolitics of the families kuti iwewe bamnini wako pavari kuona vada kuti vatengere koti, iwewe mai vako wakavapromisa kuti uchavachenja masofa mumba, apa Ethan ari kutodawo mapampers, and like how do we deal with the geopolitics of the dynamics of your family and your family? How do we deal with that situation?
That's a very good question. I mean, one thing we resolved to do was he knows his family better, I know my family better. And you know, and like, we decided I protect him from my family, he protects me from his family, and create a balance because we know what's urgent and what's not. Like you're saying, my sofa, but it was you know what I mean? So we came to that understanding, and I think this is where we as a couple strongly feel premarital counseling is critical. Because when you have your family, like he said, when you go into an argument, you tend to want to go into default settings. No, I'll do today. But now this is the new family. So what we need to do is work on establish new rules or modus operandi of what we're going to do as a family. So you're not forsaking your family, but you are clinging to this new relationship and you're making it work. Because I always find it funny but they protect their marriage, but they make your marriage vulnerable. So we decided that early in the marriage, we are working on our marriage, and these other external entities need to come to a place where they respect us. And I think we've done well by doing that. I mean, I had to try it.
Look, when you and me and her, every human being, we're a product of our background. If anything, possibly we're even victims of our background.
Yeah.
To say that who you are today is a product of the elements that have contributed to your upbringing. So essentially, when two people meet, it's like two hard surfaces, which are rough.
Two rocks.
And then conflict then evens them out. So that process, my psychologists, my family counselors will tell you that the absence of conflict is unhealthy. So there's a certain amount of conflict which is healthy, but not too much. Sakakubata needs a worldview. Those two worldviews and those two backgrounds. And you're talking about religious backgrounds which may be different. You're talking about my value systems which are different. She may believe that she should come home at 8 p.m. I may have grown up in a home where you were told, after 6 p.m. And that can be a point of conflict. There has to be a consciousness and an acceptance to say, Alex, this is where people fight. It is when I try to manipulate or to force my thinking on her and her thinking on me.
Impose, that's the word.
Or force, or impose. Oh, it's imposed.
Hey, that's deep, hey. Marriage, fire, Ethan, Papa, my hormones are going to. I mean, you're a man and I'm a man. You know this. We all go through this. You know, a period, personally, like even with my girlfriend, kana mari singabatani soga. Even chiro. I know but try to check my Viagra. How did you deal with your first? How do you deal with that first? It's been rosy for 6 months, a year. How do you deal with the first phase of being broke? Like apana chubata, like chiro South Cheshire, and her dad has trusted you with her daughter's life, and what's going through your head when that hits the marriage? It was madola zero slash paiso my new currency. What goes through your mind as a man in a relationship?
You know what he once said? Like we're moving. Our first house was in St. Martin's, so we're moving from St. Martin's to Greendale. So we packed our stuff and
Nissan PG7
PG7
one-ton pickup.
One-ton pickup. So we've packed our stuff and he's looking at us. Someone's on ticket accident in Benny.
My passport,
everything. Wow.
This is right. So I've done a small study on the politics of money and power in relationships. Okay, and remember, when two people, when you have a group of people, there's the politics, but then there's also the financial side. Okay, and many couples struggle with this, Alex, this concept speaks to is it a saying? Not he who pays the piper plays the tune. Musatombonye brand munane mari ndiano dictator pace. Musatombonye zvazvo hey what default setting kana ndiri ndine mari, I have this very strong urge to then say no, mari iri kufamba so. So what we did, we then made a decision, and in Inibi, because I'm a pastor, and naturally in Digafa, there's a tendency that the relationship or the position that she has, it fizzles, because the relationship is basically, in terms of employment, is between me and the church. Okay, if I die, so if I die, then a committee sits. A new pastor is posted. So we then made a decision that, look, isusu hatina mari, but we need to work together as a team. So what we did, we then said, my resources, we pool them. And then we work towards a common goal. Saka apana musu nonze uyo hana mari, kana uyo hane mari, because we're working as a unit. And I think for the past 13 years, that's what has worked for us. No. Mukangoita, because you know what some couples do, Alex? Vanoti, murume ndiacha badara rent, and the wife pays for the groceries. But financial tides change. Guys, we're in a Zimbabwean economy. So no one will change. One day murume ndiane mari. Next year, mukazi ndiane mari. But I think our African fiber, and I guess generally it's put there by God, murume is designed to provide. This is why anatomically you provide the seed as a man, and the woman receives.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, pari Jimmy Babu. Because what I like the fact that you went back to that one. Now don't move on. Just a small segue. Saka imi murundudza kuti, because ndanyazozocalculate calendar nemadates ekurorana kwenyu, ndakazoona kuti wakati 2 months plus antibiotics. So did you guys wait till you were married to have sex for the first? Did you reserve it for marriage? Oh yeah. So like I like where this conversation is at right now. So what do you think? Like you've seen a lot of marriages fall apart after a month, 2 weeks, a year. What do you think the current generation is doing wrong in terms of marriage? Where are they getting it wrong?
If you go to court right now, the rate of marriages to divorce 100%. That tells you that, and I just did a little research and I found out that the leading cause of divorce is not even infidelity; it's economic challenges. That's one of the leading causes. And then after that, there's the issue of communication. Third is infidelity. So people can actually work around infidelity, but issues the marriage not on it. And communication with issues of finances makes so much sense to follow after that. Because where there's lack of transparency, where funds are not coming together, people are not talking well. So I think those are some of the things that we've been seeing, as critical issues, and there are issues that need to be addressed as critically as we're sitting now.
So how then you are married, Murugaram St. Martin's property, Kati 35. And we all have relatives, and you got, ta budget mapakete edu 4 emriwo ari mfriji. Vo relative yashanya paya murimfundisa mungati like how do you deal with those processes? And I expect breakfast, lunch, supper. How do you deal with those dynamics? Like the other dynamics where the other people get involved and you can't even tell them, we appreciate the love of you visiting us, but Zaka Presa right now, and Ini nangu personally, I would ndongo mukandishosha magumbezi every day. Anozongona ja.
I don't know kia because you know what I have a philosophy, if you want to call it, which I've established over the years. So when you're single, I strongly believe that there are certain blessings that God does not unlock until you are united with your wife, and then God unlocks those blessings.
Come on, Pastor.
Some of those blessings are opportunities that then lead to financial stability. Okay, I'll give an example. There are instances where you can be called to preach in a particular country. In Ango, I don't charge for preaching. You go there, munokubakana 300, but even in the very early stages, I think God was very gracious. Taigarachita makokas, twainzwa kawatoti shamari ma one. So toita say, ngatingo kia. Because the flip side of it is that Tirwan watema. And hospitality is part of our culture. So you can't say kuti andicha host vanhu because andina chikafu chekuita sei chekuvapa. And I believe kuti papo Mwari somehow pulls through for you. Saka taita makokas. And sometimes this is where you see the power of a woman. Remember when I was speaking about the anatomy, you give a woman seed, she gives you a child. So she incubates. Yeah. And you give a woman groceries, she gives you a meal. You give her a house, a building, she gives you a home. So she could do some things. But meal yato budaka. But it was not one.
Let me also paint the St. Martin's picture. Because, the way you're saying it was as if we could accommodate people.
No, we couldn't. We couldn't.
We stayed at the cottage, and the cottage was... Okay, first of all, he got his dad's bed. Him and his dad are 50 years apart. Bed That's the one we were sleeping on. And the shower we're using was so small that if someone was using the loo, I'd know them for that. I shower, type of thing. Because I think people need to know that, because a lot of society is thinking, no, and stuff like that. But this is a story that people need to hear, because these humble beginnings are what make you a formidable force. Because Mimias was on Dojatina, and I remember that time when people came over on a Saturday, and it was after church, and they wanted to come for lunch, and we're thinking, snap, where are these people going to go? And of course, they would not fit in the house because the bed was the only thing that could fit in there. And the next thing, type of thing. So they would come and sit outside. In fact, they sat once because we then moved. And imagine the lady hung out with the rent because I moved in. I was like, what kind of drama is that? So we have these people who come and they see us in our space, and we're thinking,
And they actually said, you really need prayers.
Yes, we need prayers.
You say to them, pray for us, and they said, you really need prayers.
And you're a pastor by then already.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're starting out in this thing, and 2 months to try to find yourself, you're pregnant. You're thinking, I remember when I said, well, I'm pregnant. It wasn't like, oh yes, we're going to have a baby. We're like, mawad.
But she told me she was pregnant.
Because like you're saying, the finances were just so tight. But like he said, you unlock these crazy blessings, because when we went to see our gynae, he says, you know what? If you guys are looking for a place, I've got a place that I have. We would never get that place if we were not married and pregnant. Nice. So you know how crazy it is?
That's a real blessing.
That's a real blessing. So we moved to Greendale because of the pregnancy we had not anticipated. And this man gives us a very good rental. That's actually better than where we are. And, in no time, we are now hosting people more comfortably than we ever wanted.
Speaking of
the pregnancy, how expensive are babies, and how does it alter the dynamics of the relationship? Like honeymoon phase, 2 months later pregnant, 9 months later baby. How does this part affect the dynamic of the relationship and the marriage?
It really affects it. Number one, the financial obligations and the financial commitments, because it was the first baby.
My cravings.
My way.
They were
my cravings. Taenda pane. I can't remember the shop, but it's along Ukambaba Joiner City, going towards Church office. Okay. There was a spot there. aida sadza nemaguru. So almost every day I had to buy sadza. Iroro sadza nemaguru. And of course, because it was the first pregnancy, you don't know. So we were told you have to see the gynae every month. Of course, we stopped that on the second pregnancy. Because we realized emergency.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously prep, all those things are expensive. But fortunately, I was now employed. So on medical aid and everything. But on the other hand, there are people who don't have resources.
Yeah.
We have more children than people with resources.
Yeah.
So the whole dynamic is very interesting. Ukatya kuzviita kuti handichaiti mwana because of cost. Uri kuvharira blessings kunze.
And how does the baby dynamic change the relationship? Memory 2, ma 3, azgurara, because you know udingwa ungonzi achimbobata oshadibu. Like how does that like?
I think the other thing people don't realize is that a woman goes through postnatal. It's possible to have postnatal depression because your body's changed, everything has just changed, and finances are now centered on this child. You're lactogen, you're out of my diapers, and you know, like diapers are just one of those things that happen every moment. And with the temperature, you don't even understand. You rush to a doctor with the last dollar that you have. You're trying to figure yourselves out. I'm not gonna mass over. People are coming to see the baby, and you know how it is when you give birth. People want to come and see the baby, the pastor's baby. They are flocking to your house and
my gifts.
Yeah.
My gifts. Allow me.
My gift.
That's coming with their eyes, and they're coming to also see where you at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of this stuff is overwhelming you because you're thinking, just squeeze. And I remember that time, those are those reads.
Yeah, it was crazy. I
would sit on there, and people would come and see you, thinking, And I think this narrative is so critical because there's someone there thinking, I remember someone saying to us, don't come to visit me, and I'm a sofa. And I'm thinking, I wish you knew where we started from.
I actually want to add on to there's a long-term effect.
Yeah.
Because right now, 13 years on, our oldest son is 12, the youngest is 9. Mm-hmm. This past weekend, they went away. And we find ourselves in a space where we're saying, wow,
Peace, finally.
This is nice. But then obviously you miss the kids. But then I'm realizing that part of what informs that is that probably mukakasika kuti vana muchangororana. You don't get time kunyasozivana.
And I've got a question on that. Just to circle back a bit, when you're saying kuti things were hard and you know you find we live in a generation where our current society is so materialistic, you know, given the social media and whatever, probably me maito nyorana tsamba or whatever. But so how come are people getting it wrong when what they look for in a partner, in a man? Okay, nini face on kana sina wonder fiti neka chichi then and this kutomboda zve marriage, because you always find like the girls these days want to find someone who already has it all. And how do you, and have you had scenarios in your when you're counseling people kuti unotoona kuti apa munaifunga kuti vane big but rakazowarara rakazoona kuti
you've struck a nerve. So when we started the dating, ndaipfeka my shorts. And I joked then.
You're sporty or no?
I was broke. I my shorts but then ndakapfeka chivest. Ndichiti baby, iwewe. Upenyu wandichakupa.
Yeah.
But there was nothing.
Yeah.
So what she got married to was potential. I'm speaking in the context of finances and this illusion that people are under. Yeah. She married potential.
Yeah.
But vanoemazwano vada kurora the end product. So the question is, who has invested in that end product? And I dare even, tilt towards infidelity. That infidelity and it's premised on there's hardship. What's that product? Seeing a man clean shaven, but to come back, there's no correlation between your wedding day and your marriage. In other words, you can't predict the quality of the marriage based on the quality of the wedding. Saka vanhu vazhinji ka Alex vari kuti no, isusu toda this grandiose wedding. We want to chata uko, kupfeka, and Giorgio Armani suit. Then when you get into the reality, ona kuti ma1.
Momva
mapinda muswireti. Saka vanhu vazhinji ka they'll spend 15 grand on a wedding day. And then you ask yourself, all right, 15 grand yo yabva kupi. Instead of reducing your cost, investing in mamario, or just beginning your marriage on a positive financial basis. But kazhinji, we're doing marriages or weddings to impress our spouse, to impress our relatives. That's where the thing is falling apart.
And also, sorry to just interject, but it's also my baby, it's no pressure. And it's in the name of security. I also understand where we're coming from in terms of because you're afraid kuti ndikasangane munhu ari ambitious asina the action part of it. Ndoda lose weight, but they are just talking about it. They never actually get to do it. So instinctive, I think I said it in the last podcast, because women have an instinct for security. It's not bad, but it has to be managed. Manage your expectations, because they are working, they're making sure that, and they spend irrationally or something, they're saving. But this person has got a drive, and we can get somewhere. That's what we want to get into tap to.
Quick question, still on finances. In your 13 years, is it better to ask for a bailout from a Henry or from Atezwa Rawako or your families? How do you, we should not pan up ma one, patrol big pan up, and patrol a small loan. Is it better to ask from a friend or from your guys' family?
It's better to ask from someone who has your interest at heart.
So it can be
who will not take you to task.
Yeah.
It was only kumbira.
Yeah.
So it could be a parent.
It can actually be a friend.
Have you borrowed money from, like, in your 13 years? Like, have you hit those rock bottoms whereby you'll be like,
yeah,
of course.
Of course, it's life.
We have. We have.
And what are the repercussions? You know, like I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend. I showed that the wife, after 4 months, after 4 months, because azirutambudza mwana wedu wakumzoresa vaseline mwana wedu aizora nivia
ndopa unotamba wakangwara.
Yeah.
If she's going to borrow money from her mother, she's the one who goes.
Face of the borrowing.
She's the one who goes.
And you don't use his name, you use your name. You have to be tactful about your marriage. You're protecting this thing by also making sure your representations are protecting the interest of your marriage. Because $50 they will not link it to her. They'll think, but I mean to him, they'll think do you know what I'm saying? The problem is when people get married, they don't realize how important it is to protect their marriage. That's when they end up confiding, no, why are you exposing him like that?
Who's more reckless with cash between the two of you? What are you reckless? Like how?
Aisha, I can.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm so good. Tell me.
But I mean, you drive a Rolls Royce. I mean, I mean, it's parked out there. I mean, I mean, look at that Mazda he's driving, and then you look at your Rolls Royce. I mean.
No. I mean, you know what? I am such a spinner, and it doesn't help that by temperament I'm a sanguine. So I'm out there, you know. I love things, you know. So
you love it soft, you know. You like soft
life. What? But you must confirm. After 13 years, you see how my love for things has. You know what? What we've decided is we've decided to team it out. He's very stingy. Mumongo akaomera vanhu vamwe, please. Mumongo akaomera.
Is that a correct representation?
No, I'm kidding. He's a saver. He's a saver.
They are not checking the surplus, the 2% surplus.
Yes, I do not check it.
Yes. So what we've agreed on is the spend pure budget, because it's not a bad thing to want to spend. Right. I mean, unengone vision. And he'll tell me, this is the budget I'm giving you, make it work. I remember this one time, it was our first time to go to Dubai, and I said to him, I will sort everything. I looked for deals on good items, but Mariaka Kwana, he was so proud because Tichi Shkapa Airport, I think 30 dirham, if not less, 30 dirham, but Takapenza, but Yaka Kwana to the T, and he was like, well done. Yeah. So I think it's great when the two of you managed your strengths and your weaknesses to complement each other, not to cancel each other.
So another question I want to ask though is like, love. Is love enough? No, love in a marriage? Is it enough to then say, yo, this is I wanna get married to this person? And also I would just, from both of you, what should I look for when I wanna, like, I'm not married. When I wanna, what are the prerequisites of someone? What should I look for? What someone looks for in a husband, in a wife?
Okay. You asked a very, very good question. Love is not enough, but love becomes or is the basis on which everything else takes place. And so love must be the basis. But it is not enough. I love you.
Yeah.
And so what to look for in a person? I'll take it from my own experience. I looked for someone who feared God, someone who loved God, and that obviously depends on your religious background. And
social media,
yeah. So someone who loves God. Number two, one of the indicators of the type of person that your potential spouse is, look at their family. And yeah. Do they come from a solid background? Of course, we don't want to then paint everyone with the same brush. There are people who come from broken families who have acted against that brokenness. But generally, for example, for women who are out there, girls, the way your boyfriend treats his mother, to a great degree, is an indicator of the way he's going to treat you. And same thing with Mskana. Does she have basic respect? So someone who fears God, someone who's respectful, someone who is faithful. And hey, there are many indicators on out. And mumuru
my male besties when you guys were dating.
Male besties. By the time we were dating, no.
Her male bestie was he a bestie?
And it was before. I was in high school. By the time we then met,
and yeah, that's another thing. I know a lot of guys struggle with this one out there in Mchamba. I want to hear a pastor's perspective from this one. When you're dating someone or when you're in a marriage with someone, is it advisable for someone to have a male bestie or a bestie? Because in I'm gonna have a bestie and in my best interests. Yeah.
Bestie,
no,
yeah.
No, he asked me.
Bestie, Baba.
That I'm a best of the opposite sex. Mama one. Yeah. We advise against it.
Yeah.
It's not advisable. We in our counseling we actually say, if your friend is not willing to be friends with your spouse, then get rid of them. And we then actually recommend that the best framework for friendships, couples befriend couples.
Yeah.
So I've got a lady best friend. You know what
happened? In our view, she then realized, wait, Laverne is actually marriage material. And then she's like, oh, well, why not just try again? Yeah, like bring it on, Nick. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
it's a long
mentioned
short.
something. You mentioned something interesting because you said in your guys' counseling sessions, right? You know how women are like, say, we have an argument and I think I'm right, the other party thinks they're right, and then maybe they actually are right, and then we have to go sit down pamberi pemwe munhu, and then and vakadzi vangoona third party vanotomira zenze vakutotangisa kutomira mapapiro right, and then I then start feeling some type of way, and then when we go back, maybe ndatonzi pamberi pemunhu inini ndindiri wrong pa-counseling session papa. I asked this question to then say, do you think that in an African context or in just in dating and in marriage in general, does counseling help? And what are the pros and cons of the help you get in counseling?
Okay, so first and foremost, mukaona makuenda to a third party, it means mafaila pane chinhu one, communication. Imi muri tumatadza kutaurirana.
Yeah.
That's why you are roping in a third party. Counseling generally is helpful as a guideline. Kazhinji kacho, if you come to me for counseling, you have the answers.
You do.
You do. But what you need is someone just to guide or someone just to help you to bring those answers out. So counseling does help, but counseling only helps if you are willing to follow the advice. Unoona kuendesa dongi kurwizi, but awagoni kurimanikidza kumwa mvura.
And with, we've seen the success in premarital counseling. People who've had premarital counseling have easier marriages, if I should say, because they appreciate what is happening and what. Because you know what, you must understand, a woman sometimes can communicate from a hormonal perspective. She's on a menstrual period, and she's like, she's not thinking in the way that you would normally have. Maybe both sexually and and physically. So all these dynamics, all these aspects are things that affect our communication. Or the assumption, he always says, the biggest challenge with communication is the assumption that it has occurred. So there are things that you think, so it's important to have premarital counseling, and we've seen the success. We ourselves were not counseled before we got married, and we felt that pain. So I think that's why we are so fervent with regards to counseling, because we learned some things we could have learned from someone just explaining to us. If someone had told us and we used these tools, we would have had it easier, because most divorces occur between 3 and 5 years, if not earlier. So that time is a testing time, because there's no one who's holding back. Everyone wants to protect themselves. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And, that phase is so critical because it's a defining phase that if people don't receive counseling, they're not received it earlier, it can break the marriage.
You guys have been married for 13 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which one was the toughest year? Year 3 or year 5 or year 10?
4 to 5, aren't you?
4 to 6.
4 to 6, yeah.
4 to 6.
Second born had kicked in now.
He kicked in 3 years after the first one.
Yeah.
Damn. So now let's talk insecurities. Right. Like
now you are going deep.
no. I'm just saying, like, because let's talk insecurities where you're in a situation where Baba Runzi vadedzwa kusangano rekuswaziland, and we know what happens in Swaziland. It stays in Swaziland. And pane zvafana zvima new pathfinder kumatarisiro ari zvirungoitawo madam azvisati zvichiri zvepathfinding here. So like how do you deal with insecurities where, and do you then tell your spouse kuti and I think how do you deal with those insecurities? And are there insecurities, and is it safe to be insecure in a relationship?
Sure.
No, yeah, because, okay, let me be honest with you, right? If I'm married to someone and another guy comes up, yes, I'm a human being, and it's a human emotion being insecure. I'm within my rights to say I am insecure with you having this person as a male base. Yeah. So I'm saying, how do you deal with insecurities?
Yeah, I think insecurity is based on a past experience.
It's a trauma response.
Yeah, it's a trauma response because zvasiyana nekuchengera.
Okay.
Handiti ka.
Okay.
Ini mudzimai wangu ndomuchengera hangu unyepera mufudzi.
Kuchengera rudo.
Yeah, kuchengera rudo mudhara. So kuchengera is one of it's being territorial.
All right.
Uyu mudzimai wangu.
Human nature.
Yeah, human nature. Manje insecurity manje is painting a false reality based on a past experience. Kuti ndikamona achitaura neumwe murume ndoti toenda uyo mukadzi handisisina papasina. So it ignites my emotions like anger and so forth. So insecurities are not safe to have in a relationship because they are premised on fear. And remember that the Bible says perfect love casteth out fear. The Bible says we have not been given a spirit of fear. So ukaita chinhu uchitya, you have no security.
Yeah.
Would you rather have her tell you if there's a guy who's hitting on her, or you rather have her not say anything?
Aina ndabasa nazvino. Ina unga ndabati iyanda kuziva.
In that was
Inina.
Mati.
Because I trust her.
All right.
Yeah. But I nini.
Na kusanzwe ansikuwa trust but ndingota kuti nida ungoziva. Full stop.
What's
And then what?
And then to shanda teso tiona toita saying mandi yoyi.
And let's talk secrets and how like 13 years is a long time. At what point did you start noticing that maybe keeping secrets from each other was not a healthy thing? Or have you ever kept secrets from each other?
Are we?
They've eventually come out.
They've eventually come out. And like you're saying, you realize along the way, this is just not good.
Yeah, I know.
And Noza, to be honest, I think the one thing with marriage is you just want to live a simple and clear, accountable life. Once it starts having these little complications where you've got this thing you're keeping, it just makes your life difficult.
It's a lot of work. Can I speak to those who are not dzima my message? It's a lot of work.
WhatsApp
message. And you always have to remember
and you must always remember the last narration you gave because you never forget.
Especially when you're living with a lawyer, my guy.
How do you guys keep how do you guys keep the flame and the spark in your intimate life? Like it's 13 years, you know what I mean? Still, like people can have sadza and high feelings for 13 years and still be like, you have to. How do you guys keep it? Like, how do you guys like still feel like you just met each other and still remain attracted to each other?
Can I say something to that? One thing we discovered, like you're saying, my date nights is going to answer all the problems in the world. But we literally then realized, Kuti, one of the things that is taking from us is just exhaustion. You know that if exhaustion can burn that fire, burn you out, you just sit there, you feel like brother and sister, and it's not a good place to be. So you literally have to run away from exhaustion in terms of trying to look for, ways to escape that. Because I remember this one time, just recently, we went for Easter up. We went for a little, we saw the family. Then we went to Bulawayo for another program. But it was a relaxing period that what we managed to do in that period, man. But what I'm just trying to say is that you find new ways each and every time. Sometimes it might be the flowers, but if the flowers keep coming, I freeze. But sometimes it might be the rest. Sometimes it might be dinner. So it just always changes, and you have to find it. Kuti, what can we do in this moment that we need for this moment? Sometimes just to catch up. And that just makes you feel like, we're still a thing. You know what I mean? Because it's very possible to be lost in that. And it's very possible to become so dependent on the kids that they define the marriage, which is also bad.
Okay.
On Keep the Fire Burning, moto anasa orambi uchipfuta.
I actually wanted to go there. I actually wanted to ask Uchi, like, how do you, like, she's not the same woman you fell in love with 13 years ago. So how do you then do that whereby you continue to grow, to love the person that she's evolving into becoming and the person that he's evolving into becoming? And still on that, Murugu St. Martin's, Baba, how would you feel if you're like next door neighbor when you went by it? Like, how do you deal with you're living in a setup whereby it seems like all the other Anababa next doing whatever? You know, like we live in communities, we don't live in vacuums, and are doing better than you. One of the pastor, elder, Ulanda, you know,
Or your friends.
what to get our Audi? She as my Audi, but yes. So how do you juggle that in marriage, whereby you know you're with your spouse and you're trying your best and that's batana, but you know, like how do you deal with those kind of situations? Because there are people with those kind of situations where you're trying all you can, but but like everyone around you, your peers, your friends, they seem to be prospering. How do you work that, and what advice would you give to people in those kind of situations?
Okay, I'll start with keep the fire burning. Tudashan some fun and zwe kumusha. Kana mchibika paipe anditika moto unomboita sei unomboita uchidzikira saka munokuchidzira. Saka mama frauzi kuenda kumahotera andi kuenda kuma holidays ndokukuchidzira kwacho. The objective kuti moto urambe uchipfuta. Anditika. And then the second part of your question, stay in your lane.
True.
Accept that this is where we are.
True.
But strive to be better. Not based on covetousness. Because covetousness says, why does he have? Why is he sitting there? I should be the one hosting. That's covetousness. But aspiring to be better is saying, wow, he looks like he's in a good space. In my own race, I'm better than what I was yesterday. So one of the things we learned early on in our marriage is usatambe nevanhu vasiri velevel rako. Anditi udatamba nevanhu vane mazi mari muchangotanga rugara ku St. Martin's. Ichasvika time yekuti muchatamba nevanhu vane mari ka and feel that you know what, these are just our friends. But my social pressures akawanda. Anditi we must never tap into social pressures. Set objectives as a family. This is what I want to achieve. As a man, set a vision, yako. This is what I want for my family and work towards it. And God blesses us as long as we're accepting our lane and striving to be better in our lane. The moment you want to take over someone else's lane, then pane problem.
And you know what happened was, and why he says that, we had these couples who were friends of ours. And we went over for it. Like, they were like, oh, come over to my place for dinner. So, like I said, it's auntie names my sofa, and they had like corner couches, L-shaped couches there. And they're like, you know what? Right now, our focus, this car, like you're saying, and the woman is like, this dining set also. And I'm thinking, what? I don't even have cups, my guy. And we came from that. We, like he said, we caucused, then we were like, in 1 hour, I was at this level. And we took a step back and said, look, if it means we have no friends, we're going to trudge along Takadaro. And we also then found people who were like us. It felt so nice to have people saying, and it was nice growing with those people and, you know, learning from them learning from us. So be equally yoked even in your relationships, your extended relationships, because they make you, that's what drives you or pulls you back.
Anyway, thank you guys for coming through. Any last parting words? And I still want to find out any wise words. So we should do this again. And I also want to find out 13 years later, what still annoys you about him and what still annoys you about her? What little habit that not sure 13 years
No, I know what I annoy him with.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yes,
Oh,
I ask, like, it's not nagging per se. He's like, baby, I'm going to do. Baby, you asked me this 1,000 times. I'm like, I'm just trying to make sure. And with him, what annoys me about him is that he will say, yeah, charge it, don't worry, charge it.
And it never gets done.
It never gets. If it gets done, it's because you're like, that's at 97.2.
Can fuel motor.
All right. Anyways, wise ways for couples, young couples out there who are actually who are watching this and who are listening, like parting words, wise.
Look, young couples who are there and those who intend to get into marriage. Marriage is a place where you give more than you receive. And the good book says it is more blessed to give than to receive. Wapinda uchiti ndindoda kutora, you might be forfeiting blessings that come from giving. And you must become the kind of person that when 5 years your spouse looks back, they say you were the best choice because you would have created an environment where your spouse becomes the best version of themselves.
That's true. And I think for anyone out there who's contemplating marriage with someone, it's important to get premarital counseling. I think we have seen it. It's true. You love someone, but love isn't enough, like you said. So get premarital counseling. It's something that's going to equip you in the best way to be the best version of yourselves in the marriage.
Anyway, guys, thanks. Guys,
let's go with that one.
Guys, all right.
Yeah, Alex, we need to help you. You're a broken soul.
Is this an intervention or what, guys?
An intervention.
All right.
What he fear?
Yeah, he's afraid. He's afraid of marriage.
So you would say to him,
I'm not. It's not that I'm afraid of marriage. It's just that I understand the prerequisites of what I think marriage needs, and then I'm like, yo. What if,
that's fair.
What if I don't provide for this person properly? You know,
fair.
It goes over 5,000. No, I'm just joking.
Oh my gosh, you're horrible. All right.
Okay.
Pastor.
Should I say to you, Alex?
Just talk to him.
Okay,
yeah, help you.
So yeah, and you know what? For you, Alex, I want to give, well, if you call them wise words, if you wish, but I want to give you this analogy. If I plan to travel to Bulawayo, and there's the potential for my tire to burst, and if I say I'm afraid to go to Bulawayo because the tire will burst, then my not going to Bulawayo is dictated by fear. So that's why you have a spare tire. So the purpose of the spare tire is you are saying, no matter what happens, I'm going to get to my destination. There's no success that comes from fear.
So I'm going to need a spare tire.
How do you risk control? Like, you know, my way.
Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's been another exciting special of Confession Booth. Please do not get married before you watch this video. Sha, that's the title of the video. Do not get married before you watch this video. Confession Booth, we're out. Cut. Guys, my money will value 6,000. No scare that was like something.
I didn't do what you mean. You mean, you know,